Exposed: the terrifying secrets of the haunted 1967 Apollo mission Sinister alien bases unveiled. Emily's heart raced as she walked home from the diner. The shadows of the trees twisted and danced under the eerie glow of the streetlights. Their neighborhood, once a canvas of comfort, now felt like a haunted maze. Families were vanishing without a trace, leaving only whiffs of anxiety hanging in the air. It was a quiet suburb, but lately, silence felt treacherous. Every evening, she stirred coffee and fried up pancakes while listening to the whispers of her regulars. But tonight, the talk turned to the latest disappearance of the Jenkins family, a family who lived 2 doors down. Just up and left, one woman muttered, eyes wide, like they'd just vanished into thin air. Emily barely concealed her unease. She had to keep her son safe. That was her priority. At home, Tyler was glued to the computer, gaping at conspiracy theories about the Apollo 1967 mission. "Mom, you have to see this!" he'd yell, eyes bugged out like he'd seen something magical, or rather, something terrifying. Obsession had stitched itself into his thoughts, weaving a tale of sinister truths that made Emily's skin crawl. He was convinced these disappearances had something to do with secret government experiments, alien bases hidden deep in the dark woods at the edge of town. "Tyler, just focus on your homework," Emily would plead tiredly, but he was relentless. "Mom, they're hiding something. I can feel it." Those words followed her like a specter. As she lay in bed, fatigue pulling her into a hollow state of sleep, shadows outside their window crept in and out of her dreams. The hissing whispers Tyler talked about resonated like a distant echo in her ears. Then one night, their television flickered on, displaying images of streets shrouded in fog and ominous shadows stretching longer than the evening itself. Emily woke with a jolt, panic tightening her throat. The pictures melted into static, and soon the air turned heavy, feeling almost alive. Tyler whimpered in his sleep. She couldn't dismiss this as just fatigue anymore. Something sinister was crawling beneath the surface of their quaint life. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Just then, a bone-chilling howl pierced the night air. The wind howled louder, rattling the window panes, and for a split second, Emily thought she could hear something moving outside, close. Sweating palms and a quickened heartbeat pushed her to grab the flashlight. Shadows danced menacingly, while something distinctly whispered her name from somewhere deep outside, a voice so soft it could have been imagined. "Mom, are you okay?" Tyler's voice quivered, pulling Emily back to the present. But her instincts screamed, "Trust your son's fear." They weren't safe. With a mix of dread and determination, she took a breath. Could their lives really be entwined with the chilling secrets of abandoned government cover-ups? As she turned towards the door, the weight of unseen eyes pressed against her back. The storm swelled outside, rain hammering down now, mixing with the howls and a cacophony of terror. Emily knew this was just the beginning. What awaited them in the shadows of their neighborhood? The only certainty was that their fragile facade of normal life was bound to crack, and soon she would find out just how deep the rabbit hole went. As Emily stood in the threshold of the door, her heart raced at the thought of stepping into the darkness. The shadows pulled ominously, beckoning her gaze away from the safety of home. The candlelit kitchen behind her offered a glimmer of warmth against the suffocating chill creeping in from outside. She tightened her grip on the flashlight. Its modest beam felt feeble against the encroaching night. "What if it's just the wind?" Tyler whispered, still trembling behind her. His voice carried that same knot of fear that wove through Emily's soul. But deep down, a sense of urgency clawed at her instincts. This was just an ordinary night. Taking a breath, she whispered back, "Stay close." They were both aware that curiosity could lead them into realms beyond imagination. But nothing prepared them for the next moment. An electrifying crack of thunder lit up the night sky, illuminating what stood beyond their front lawn. For an instant, she saw it, a figure, cloaked and shadowy, just at the tree line. Emily's blood turned to ice. "Tyler!" She lunged, pulling him back inside, slamming the door. "Did you see that?" She could barely form the words. Tyler nodded, eyes wide and full of fear. I think it was watching us." The pounding rain became a relentless drum, drowning out her rising panic. They stumbled back into the kitchen, hearts racing, as the silence enveloped them once again, louder now than the storm outside. Emily's breath quickened, every thud echoing in her ears. She cursed the unmistakable creep of dread that sneaked through her thoughts. Was it just a figment of her imagination, or had they missed the calls of something far more sinister? Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering shattered the stillness, a violent collision that made both of them jump. "What was that?" Tyler's voice cracked. They exchanged a look, knowing they would have to confront the darkness together. Emily grabbed a kitchen knife, forcing logic into her rapidly spiraling thoughts. Whatever was happening, they would face it as a team. "Stay behind me," she ordered, edging down the hall. Their tiny home suddenly felt vast, empty spaces cloaked in shadows offering no comfort. Each creak of the floor, every whisper of the wind amplified the tension thickening in the air. As they reached the living room, Emily's heart sank. The broken window lay directly under the flickering streetlight, casting harsh light on a chilling scene. A dark trail of muddy footprints led away from the shattered glass and into the night. "Look," she whispered, trembling as she pointed. "Those weren't here before." Tyler leaned closer, his face pale. "They don't look human." She couldn't argue. The prints were almost elongated, distinctly wrong for a person. A cold sweat broke across her forehead as the realization hit. Was it possible those who had disappeared were drawn to this very thing? Before she could process it further, a low growl resonated from outside, vibrating through the shattered windowpane. Their eyes met, a silent agreement passing between them. The peril was no longer confined to their neighborhood. What if the alien whispers were real? What if the town's sinister secrets buried beneath those dark woods had finally clawed their way to the surface? Just then, the porch light dimmed, flickered, and went out, plunging them into darkness. The last strands of hope faded as their entire world turned menacingly silent. They stood frozen, hearts pounding, bracing for whatever emerged. Then, a voice echoed, familiar and haunting, scraping against Emily's sanity. "Mom!" It was Tyler's. "Tyler?" Emily turned, searching for her son, panic flooding her veins. But Tyler's eyes remained glued to the darkness outside. The faint silhouette began to meld with the shadows, inching closer. The question loomed in Emily's mind. Was it the threat of an otherworldly being or something much worse lurking in the dark? She mustered her will, preparing for what lay ahead. But as the eerie voice beckoned again, the only answer she could find was a shared terror. What awaited them in the depths of the night? The air thickened, suffocating them both as Emily's heart raced faster than her mind could catch up. In that restless silence, the name echoed again, and she could feel the grip of terror around her throat. "Mom!" The voice strained, pulling at her soul like a phantom. It was impossibly close now. "Tyler, stay back." Emily broke the command with urgency, her hand tightening around the knife, a flimsy piece of hope in an ocean of dread. She could no longer tell where the shadows ended and the specter of danger began. Tyler's face was a mask of confusion, his gaze still locked on the figure. Who is it, Mom?" His voice crackled, breaking the oppressive silence. Fear clenched at her chest as she struggled to breathe, not just for herself but for her son, who stood on the brink of something terrifyingly unknown. The air grew colder, a biting gust of wind cutting through the broken window, and the silhouette took form, a twisted figure, jerky and unnatural, shimmering in and out of visibility. Was it human? The reflection of the streetlight glinted off something wet and grotesque. Eyes? No, not eyes. A hollow void where life should have flickered. Run! We need to get out of here! Emily shouted, but her legs felt anchored to the floor, rooted in instincts of fight or flight. The figure was beckoning, gesturing with twisted limbs that seemed to scrape against the very fabric of reality. Tyler hesitated, but now, she barked, snapping him back to the moment. They darted toward the kitchen, adrenaline coursing through their veins, propelling them toward the hallway. A sudden crash sounded from the living room, a window shattering, again followed by an unmistakable skittering sound, like nails clawing against the hardwood. It felt primal, a raw terror that wrapped itself tightly around their throats. Emily dashed into the kitchen and slammed the door shut, pressing her back against it, hard hammering, hoping it would hold. But as the seconds ticked by, the gnawing fear in her stomach only deepened. Mom? What if it's something? What if it's here? Tyler's voice trembled as he whirled around, eyes wide and pleading. The shadows pressed against the walls, almost conversational, whispering secrets that sent chills through her bones. We have to barricade the door. Quick! Together, they grabbed furniture, wedging a chair, and then the heavy kitchen table against the door. Each scrape across the floor felt like an alarm sounding in her mind, a desperate reminder that they had no idea what was out there. The thing outside whispered again, a slithering sound that wormed its way into her mind, speaking in a voice that was both familiar and foreign. Mum, let me in. The walls closed in as time stretched, each second echoing with uncertainty. Emily snapped her head, glaring at Tyler. You have to be brave. Promise me. Desperation soaked through her words. I promise, he stammered, though the conviction in his voice barely masked his growing fear. The whispers grew louder, the sound of nails scratching at the door, a monstrous thing that sought entry into their fragile sanctuary. Emily's palms were slick with sweat, the knife shaking in her grasp. The feeling was undeniable. They were not alone. The darkness had taken a form they could not recognize. Then, as they crouched behind their makeshift barricade, a peculiar silence gripped the house. The skittering stopped, the voice faded, not gone, just waiting, lurking. Emily's pulse raced, her instincts screaming for her to act. Lights flickered as the electricity waned, casting the room in eerie shadows. What is happening? Tyler whispered. For a fleeting moment, she grabbed the flashlight, aimed it toward the door. But before she could flick it on, an overwhelming fear surged through her, a creeping realization. The Callings, the malevolent figure, they wanted more than just to frighten them. They had been chosen as vessels, and what lay beyond that door was something insatiable, something waiting to claim its prize. Then, out of the silence, a soft thud against the door, like a heartbeat against the wood. In that instant, the question that twisted itself into Emily's mind was no longer about survival. It was about the unknown entities that lurked behind the veil of darkness. Could they resist the lure of whatever awaited them? With bated breath, she felt a dark choice creep in. What if they let it in? What if they opened the door, becoming part of the tale that haunted this place? The choice loomed. How far would they go to uncover this madness? The door vibrated sharply as if it were laughing. What waited behind it would have them crack wide open and spill their secrets. The air in the kitchen grew thick with anxiety. Emily's heart pounded as the rhythmic thudding against the door continued, its sound reverberating through her bones, rising to a fever pitch that drowned out the whispers. It was as if something was taunting them, each thud a reminder of their precarious situation. What do we do? Tyler's voice broke through the turmoil. Panic etched across his face. Emily gritted her teeth, her grip on the knife tightening until her knuckles turned white. "We can't just sit here. We need to find a way out." She cast a desperate glance around the kitchen, searching for an escape, but the shadows seemed to thicken, swallowing any trace of light. "Mom," Tyler's eyes darted toward the door. The faint rustling of fabric, like the sound of dry leaves skittering across the ground, seized Emily's attention. It drowned out the thuds, morphing into a new, more sinister whisper. The voice was chilling, seductive. "You're so close, Emily. Just a little more." "No!" she barked, forcing herself to focus. "Stay with me, Tyler. We need to keep moving." At that moment, a splintering crash erupted from the barricaded door, as if a force 10 times stronger than their fears had struck. Instinct kicked in, and she hoisted Tyler toward the back door, her mind racing. "Hit the window," she urged, her voice sharper now. Tyler clambered to the sink, fumbling with the window latch. Outside, the night was a blanket of ink, threatening to envelop them in a suffocating darkness. Each second felt stretched by an invisible hand, while the basement door creaked ominously in the background, urging them to linger just a moment longer. "What if it's waiting for us out there?" Tyler trembled, his face ghostly pale. The words hung heavy in the air, but Emily thrust her fears aside. They had to try. They had to escape whatever haunted them. "Just open it," she shouted, urgency eclipsing her own terror. The window finally lifted, screeching in protest. She scrambled under the space to slip out into the night, pushing her son through behind her. The cool air struck them like a slap. She turned back, the kitchen glowing in flickering shadows, the door bowing inward. Suddenly, a guttural screech tore through the night, resonating with an otherworldly edge that sent a quiver up her spine. They sprinted across the yard, heedless of the world around them. It felt like a terrible dream, the kind where the ground beneath you threatens to rend apart. "Where do we go?" Tyler yelped, panting against the sudden onslaught of uncertainty. Behind them, a cascade of noises erupted. The window shattered, splinters flying like shards of ice, followed by the soft thud of something heavy hitting the ground. "Anywhere but here." "Keep running," Emily urged, fear surging within her like a tidal wave. They tore through the branches lining the property, and the distant outlines of trees became blurred figures in her peripheral vision. The shadows danced as they plunged deeper into the thicket, the night closing in like a vice. "Mom!" Tyler cried, his voice a desperate plea. She turned back, her breath hitching as she saw him falter, stumbling over a root. "Help!" He reached out, clutching at her sleeve, dragging her down with him. Before she could react, a twisted silhouette emerged from the darkness, beckoning with a grotesque, distorted smile. It moved closer, a grotesque tableau coming to life in the moonlight. "Tyler, come to us," it crooned, a voice that ricocheted off the trees and echoed in her mind. Emily's instincts flared. "Run! Run!" she screamed, dragging Tyler back to his feet, but he was transfixed, eyes wide and unseeing, as if the figure held him captive in a trance. "Tyler, please!" Panic clawed at her throat. She shook him hard, desperation pushing her words out. "Focus on me. Fight it." Suddenly, a cold hawk of dread shot through her, the air electrified as the figure lunged forward. Emily pushed Tyler away, positioning her body between him and the horror. "No!" The knife flashed in her hands, a flicker of bravery amid crushing panic. But as the figure lunged, the darkness swelled, consuming everything. Just when she thought all hope was lost, a laughter honeyed and horrifying filled the air, sending ripples of unease deep into her core. The shadows surged forward, pulsing like a living thing. Emily's heart raced, the world spiraling into chaos. What had they just unleashed? What unseen horrors would emerge to claim them in turn? The moment the shadows enveloped them, time warped in Emily's grasp. She felt the knife slide from her fingers, her body frozen in a mix of terror and raw instinct. The laughter echoed around her, rising and falling like the tide, drowning out her reason. "Run!" She tried again, screaming through the haze of her fear, but her voice was a mere whisper against the cacophony that had swallowed the night. Tyler's eyes stayed glossy, his body still, held captive by the specter. She grabbed him firmly, shaking him, desperation sharpening her words. "Fight it! We have to move." The figure loomed closer, its wicked smile stretching wider, revealing teeth that shimmered against the moonlight. It reached out, almost as if painting the air with shadow. Emily's heart raced, each beat a frantic drum echoing in her ears. The grove of trees around them twisted into silhouettes that seemed to lean closer, listening, judging. "Emily," it purred, the voice wrapping around her like a cold vine. "You know you can't escape. Your son belongs to us, no!" She screamed, forcing herself to look into the void of the figure's eyes. She yanked Tyler to her, dragging him backward as she stumbled over roots and jagged rocks. He blinked as if waking from a dream, confusion replacing the glaze of fear. "Mom, what is happening?" he stammered, his voice cracking as they turned to flee. The woods loomed around them, each branch and shadow a potential trap. "Just keep going. We need to find the road," she urged, the path ahead barely illuminated and twisted with more than just roots. As they pushed deeper into the darkness, Emily could feel the rush of something behind them, an ominous presence that rushed through the trees, whispering threats that clung to the air. The laughter faded a little, but the thudding was all too close now, a pounding that mirrored her racing heart. With every step, a sense of urgency clawed at her throat. "Do you hear that?" Tyler asked suddenly, halting mid-stride. Panic flickered across his features as he turned to look back. "Mom, it's following us." Emily spun around. The darkness was thickening, pulsating outward in a malevolent rhythm. "We can't stop. We have to keep moving." But as they rushed forward, the area around them began to change. The trees, once ancient guardians, now twisted into grotesque forms, their bark akin to the skin of the very creature chasing them. Every breath was laden with dread, a suffocating weight. Suddenly, a jagged scream cracked the stillness, a sound that shattered the air and sent Tyler collapsing against an ancient tree. Emily's instincts surged. She pulled him up, their hands clasped tightly as they continued running. "Look!" he shouted, pointing through the darkness. A glimmer of light pierced the trees ahead, a single beam that cut through the night like hope and despair. "Is that the road?" "Yes. We're almost there." She pushed him forward, every fiber of her being screaming for them to reach the light. As they raced toward it, the ground trembled beneath their feet. It wasn't just their fear that stirred the earth. It was as if the very land was alive, mocking their escape. Then, the laughter returned, sharper and more twisted now, a chorus of voices, each sounding like a sinister combination of familiar and foreign tones. "Emily, Tyler, we are waiting for you." In that moment, Emily knew they had outrun the shadows, but not the horror. They broke through the trees, stumbling onto a narrow dirt road lined with flickering lanterns, like fireflies in the night. "Keep moving toward the light," Emily urged, sensing a malignant force lingering just behind every breath. Yet even as they turned toward the path, an icy dread enveloped them both, the laughter echoing in ripples, and behind them, the shadows loomed, unyielding. They would not easily escape. "Mom, are we safe?" Tyler's voice trembled, and Emily's heart sank. But she pressed on, keeping the flickering light in her sight. What darkness lurked behind? And would they even make it to the road before it reached them? As they ran, something in the distance caught the corner of her eye, a shape darting between the trees, glinting with a sense of finality. What were they truly running from, and would they find solace, Or was it only the beginning? The lanterns flickered with desperation, almost as if they sensed the dread thickening in the air. Emily pulled Tyler forward, her heart pounding like thunder, each beat a warning to keep moving. The road felt unreal, like a mirage, every step heavy with all the weight they had just escaped. "Mom, those shadows!" His breath was ragged, fear spreading across his face. "They didn't stop. They're still out there. What if they come for us again?" "Don't think about that." Emily gritted her teeth, unwilling to let the shadows loom larger than they already had. They needed to reach safety, needed to find someone, anyone. The village was not far now. They could see outlines against the horizon, houses standing tall, yet those shadows still whispered in her mind. "We're almost there," but as they dashed toward salvation, the laughter surged back, pulsating through the trees and wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. It didn't fade, it only grew louder, reaching peaks that clawed at her sanity. "Emily, do you hear us, Emily?" "No!" she shouted, her voice swallowed by the encroaching darkness. "We are not yours." Ahead, the welcoming shapes of houses wavered, shrouded in an unnerving fog. Each step felt perilous, every movement hindered as dread wrapped around her ankles, tugging her back toward the shadows. Suddenly, something flickered in the corner of her eye, a figure, darting behind one of the houses, half a silhouette masked by the gloom. She gripped Tyler's hand tighter, a chill coursing through her. "Did you see that?" "I don't know." Tyler's small voice broke. The innocence that usually filled his eyes was now stark terror. "What was it?" "It could be someone. Maybe they can help us." But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. They had just fled malevolence. Was it possible someone awaited them now in warmth? They approached the first house, its windows dark, the porch creaking under their weight. Emily stepped up cautiously, knocking on the door hard enough for her knuckles to sting. "Hello." "Please." The only response was a chilling silence, the kind that makes the air feel like ice. She turned to Tyler, who stood pale, eyes darting nervously. "Maybe we should." Before he could finish, the door swung open, creaking ominously as dark shadows spilled from inside. A figure loomed there, indistinct and shrouded. "You shouldn't have come here," it murmured, voice laced with gravel and shadows. Emily's heart jumped, fear spiraling. "Help! We need help!" She took a step back, pulling Tyler closer as the shadows swirled at her feet, an insidious presence testing their resolve. "Help isn't what you require." The figure slithered closer, eyes gleaming with an unsettling hunger. "You're part of something bigger, something ancient." "The shadows? They are waiting, they always wait." Her pulse thundered in her ears. "What do you mean?" The figure leaned closer, an echo of the thing they had fled. "There is no escape, Emily. You can't run from what is already inside. It will come for you. It will take him." "No." Each word was a desperate plea, but the figure's smile only twisted wider, a grotesque mirage of hope. Tyler suddenly gasped, pointing back toward the woods. "Mom! Look!" A shape emerged from the trees, a darker, shifting silhouette that moved as if mocking their desperation. The laughter punctured through the quiet once more, deafening in its ferocity. "Emily! Bring him here, we want him." The voice ebbed and flowed like the tide, playful yet menacing. "Run!" Emily shouted, yanking Tyler away from the doorway, spiraling back to the road, leg muscles burning with effort. But the shadows clawed at them, relentless, each step feeling heavier than the last. "Mom, we have to hide." "No. We need to find help." But as they ran, the certainty dwindled. Behind them, the shadows gathered in a menacing crescendo of joy and rage, mingling with the figure's twisted laugh. "You think you've escaped? This is only the beginning, Emily." Inside, the house loomed larger and darker, the door swinging lightly in the wind, as if beckoning them back. What had they accidentally stumbled upon? Would they face the darkness alone, or was there more to the haunted night than they dared to imagine? Emily pushed forward, dragging Tyler with her as panic fueled their flight. The laughter transformed into a sinister echo, creeping into her thoughts. Her heart raced. The weight of fear pressed down on her chest, constricting her breath. "Mom!" Tyler yanked on her hand, his eyes wide with terror. "What if they catch us? What if that thing?" His voice faltered, and the unsaid threat loomed larger than the darkness itself. "Keep moving. We can't stop now," Emily yelled, adrenaline surging through her like a wildfire. They dashed down the path, the village houses looming larger but offering no comfort. The shadows, thick and black, twisted and curled around them, hungry for their fear. As they sprinted, she spotted the flicker of lights from a house ahead, its warm glow contrasting sharply with the encroaching darkness. "Look, Tyler! There!" She pointed, hope igniting in her chest. "Mom, do we have time?" he asked, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The laughter returned, sharp and mocking, almost a taunt at their desperation. "We have to try," she urged. They veered toward the house, the lights flickering like beacons of survival. But as they approached, dread seeped in, wrapping tightly around her like a too small blanket. What if those inside were just as lost? The door stood ajar, as if inviting them into the seeming safety within. She hesitated, sweat trickling down her back. "Is anyone home?" Emily called, peering into the dim room beyond. Shadows danced across the walls, flickering in sync with her unease. "Mom, maybe we should," Tyler whispered, but she cut him off. "Listen." She stepped into the house, pulling him inside reluctantly. Just as she crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a resounding thud. Tyler yelped, clinging tightly to her leg. "Stay close," she ordered, scanning the eerie interior. The walls were stained and peeling, and a heavy scent of mold hung in the air. The flickering light bulb overhead swung gently, casting grotesque shapes that seemed to watch them. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling. "There's nobody here," Tyler murmured, quaking beside her. A soft rustle caught her ear, a whisper that slithered through the air like a snake. She turned, every instinct telling her something was horribly wrong. The whisper grew louder, an insidious chorus surrounding them. "You've invited us in, Emily." It was almost a lullaby, sweet and sinister. "Welcome to our home." Her pulse quickened as she backed toward the door, only to find it sealed tight. "No! Let us out! Please!" Tyler's face crumpled, panic overwhelming them both. The whispers intensified, layered voices blurring together into an incomprehensible chant. They poured over her, seeping into her mind, twisting her reality. "Mom!" Tyler cried, tears streaming down his face, and the weight of fear crashed over her. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the room. It was the same silhouette that had haunted them in the woods, its features obscured. "You were foolish to come here," it said, voice chilling smooth like ice. "We knew you'd come. You belong to us now forever." "No!" Emily shouted, but her voice was lost in the uproar of laughter echoing in the dark corners of the house. The walls seemed to pulse with sinister life, closing around them. With a surge of instinct, she grabbed Tyler's wrist and darted toward a narrow corridor, the shadows flickering, elongating as if they wanted to stretch forth and ensnare them again. "Mom, where do we go?" Tyler's fear was palpable, gripping her heart even tighter. "Anywhere but here," she gasped, adrenaline fueling her surge. Just as they were about to dart into a room at the end of the hall, they were met by another figure, taller, darker, more ominous than before. It stood blocking their way. "Join us, Emily, don't you see?" it rasped, stretching a hand toward them. The shadows behind it swirled, forming more shapes, soon encircling them in a nightmarish tableau. The air grew thick, laden with despair. The wall seemed to close in, the embers of hope dwindling. "Mom!" Tyler sobbed as the darkness closed in around them, laughter amplifying in a horrifying crescendo. Would they be engulfed by the shadows, or was there still a flicker of escape hidden within the rising panic? Emily's thoughts raced toward the last place they had searched the cellar. Would that lead them to freedom or deeper into the abyss? Emily yanked Tyler with her, breathless desperation driving them deeper into the house. Time slipped away, the laughter outside echoing within her mind. She looked back, eyes wide, and the shadows seemed to pulse, as if they had a life of their own. "Here!" she shouted, spotting the door to the cellar at the end of the corridor. It loomed like a dark pit, the only option in a sea of despair. "Mom, no!" Tyler cried, but she propelled him forward with an urgency that overshadowed her fear. The door stood slightly ajar, a whisper of cool air beckoning them closer. "We have to go." She pushed the door open, and a musty smell enveloped them. Darkness swallowed everything inside. "It's our only chance." Emily took a step down, dragging Tyler along. The moment they entered, the heavy door slammed shut above them, plunging them into obscurity. "Mom!" Tyler whimpered, his voice trembling. Emily fumbled for her phone, a sliver of light illuminating the narrow staircase. The stairs creaked painfully under their weight, the sound echoing like cries in a tomb. "Stay close," she whispered, panic surging through her veins. She moved down cautiously, the light flickering against deteriorating stone walls. Shadows clung to the corners, darting nervously as if alive, waiting for her misstep. At the bottom, the cellar expanded into a wide, cavernous space. She scanned the dim recesses, panic gnawing at her stomach. It was a world of forgotten memories, old furniture covered in dust, and cobwebs that dripped like mist. "What is this place?" Tyler asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Emily replied, heart pounding. "But it has to be safer than up there." Then they heard a low, guttural noise reverberating from the far side of the cellar. "Mom?" Tyler's voice quavered, and she could feel his grip tightening around her hand. "She'll listen." She held her breath as the sound grew closer. It was a breathing, slow and deliberate, like something that was lurking and waiting, hungry. Suddenly, the flickering light revealed a mass in the shadows, pulsating like a living silhouette. Emily's blood ran cold. "Run!" she screamed. She yanked Tyler away, racing toward a corner of the cellar, desperately searching for a way out. "Over there." Tyler pointed to a small window, just above their reach. "We have to climb." Emily pushed a nearby table under the window, and they scrambled up together. But as she hoisted Tyler up, a sickening realization hit her. The unnatural sound of footsteps echoed behind them, drawing nearer. "Mom! Help!" Tyler cried, tears streaming down his cheeks as the darkness began to pull at them, stretching fingers of despair through the air. "Hold on!" Emily shouted, grasping Tyler's shoulders, hoisting him upwards just as the shadow lunged forward from the depths behind them. She barely reached the edge of the window when she felt cold fingers brushing the back of her neck. "Tyler, jump!" she urged, forcing him through the opening, panic setting into her veins as the shadow loomed closer. He landed with a thud on the ground outside, looking back, wide-eyed with horror. "Mom! Come on!" The darkness was relentless, bubbling over the edge of the table, reaching for her with an appetite for terror. "Almost there," she gasped, but as she turned to pull herself through, something yanked at her leg, pulling her back. The grip was iron, pulling her closer into the engulfing embrace of the cellar shadows. "Emily!" Tyler screamed, panic lacing his voice. "Go! Get help!" she shouted, her heart racing as she felt the shadows tighten, circling her like a noose. "No! I can't leave you!" Tyler's voice pierced through the terror, But Emily knew there was no time. "Please, Tyler. Just go." Just then, the roof creaked ominously above them, the weight of the darkness threatening to collapse entirely. The last flicker of light blinked out as she felt the floor give way, the world around her spiraling into pitch blackness. Would Tyler find a way to escape, or would the shadows take them both, sealing their fate among the forgotten? Emily's vision faded into darkness, leaving only the echo of Tyler's cries reverberating through the void. The darkness consumed Emily, a suffocating blanket that smothered her thoughts. She felt a rush of wind, a whirlwind of dread swirling around her as she tumbled through nothingness. The world was silent, save for the distant echo of Tyler's voice fading into the void. She couldn't help but grip onto that sound, wishing it would anchor her in this abyss. Panic surged again, swallowing, crushing. "Tyler," she called, but her voice vanished as quickly as it surfaced. Then came a shift. A flicker of light, like a malfunctioning bulb in a long-forgotten tunnel, danced before her eyes. She could see the shape of the cellar forming, blurry around the edges. She was back, but not alone. The shadows whispered. They curled and twisted, forming grotesque figures that laughed with a malicious edge. The shadows shifted away from her like dark water, exposing long-forgotten remnants scattered on the cellar floor. Broken bottles, crumpled papers, and something else. A distinct outline caught her eye. Faintly glowing, something sharp and jagged still breathed from deep within the dark, a knife. "Emily! Where are you?" Tyler's cry shook her from the trance, pulling her focus. "Here! I'm here!" She shouted into the unseen abyss, gathering what strength she had left. The shadows hissed around her, swirling and crashing like waves, desperate to pull her back into their depths. She scrambled for the knife, feeling icy fingers brush against her arm, a sensation that ignited a fire of fear in her gut. With trembling hands, she gripped the handle, its cold metal a stark contrast to the warmth of her racing heart. "Mom, please!" Tyler's voice was near now, piercing through the oppressive silence. "Hold on, Tyler. I'm coming." She turned toward the whispers chasing her, willing herself to move toward the light, a goal until it flickered and faded, leaving only the oppressive dark once more. Then she saw him, Tyler, standing at the edge of the table, panic-stricken but alive. Relief filled her momentarily until the floor beneath her missed steps seemed to expel her toward Tyler, the pull of darkness insatiable. She briefly stumbled but steadied herself, driven by the sight of her son. In one swift motion, she lunged, holding the knife firmly as she approached. "Come on, grab my hand." He reached out, eyes wide with fear, but the darkness surged again, more aggressive now. It lashed out, knocking her backward, the knife slipping from her grip. "No! No!" she shouted, tears spilling uncontrolled. Darkness coated everything, thick like molasses. She could barely see Tyler trying to leap across, the shadows celebrating their grasp. "Mom!" He was moving, shadows dragging him back, the pull of despair threatening to outpace her desperate pleas. With every ounce of determination left, Emily lunged again. The air was frigid, charged with chaos, as she grasped Tyler's outstretched hand. But the darkness retaliated. Cold tendrils wrapped around her ankles, squeezing tight as if trying to drown their bond. "Don't let go!" she screamed, struggling against the grasping shadows. "Hold on!" Tyler's face was a portrait of terror, but he held on, his little hand desperate in her grip. They were locked in a moment, the shadows dancing around them, their whispers rising to a cacophony that threatened to tear them apart. Then, right before her, amid the chaos, she saw a glimmer, something shifting in the shadows. Something that was darkness, a door? "There, Tyler!" The doorway. She pointed with all her might, her voice echoing a spark igniting hope. "Mom, I can't hold on much longer. Just a little longer." she cried, pulling with everything she had. They would not be taken. Not today. As they fought toward that sliver of light, a shadow writhed and blocked their path, larger and darker than any before. Emily felt the icy fingers close tighter around her ankle, little by little drawing her back as she struggled against the weight of despair. But where had they come from? Where was the doorway leading to? "Mom, it's pulling me!" Tyler screamed. With one desperate heave, Emily summoned every last bit of strength she had. Would they break free, or would something more sinister emerge, waiting just beyond the light? The shadows roared, and the darkness swallowed their cries, nearing an end or perhaps only beginning. Emily felt the darkness crushing down around her like a vice, every heartbeat echoing against the growing silence. She clutched Tyler's hand with all her might, squeezing until their fingers turned white as the shadows clawed at her ankles. "Don't let go," she cried. "Mom, I can't hold on." Tyler's voice trembled, but the fear in his eyes ignited a fire within her. She refused to let despair take another breath. "Just a little longer," she shouted. They were so close now. The faint outline of a door glowed, shimmering like a mirage beckoning her across the desolate expanse. All around them, the laughter of the shadows crescendoed, boisterous yet malicious, swirling through the air like winter winds. "Keep your eyes on the door," she urged, focusing solely on that glimmer of hope. Tyler strained against the pull of the shadows, sweat beading on his forehead. "Mom, it's too strong." "Not stronger than us," she roared, her voice fierce, a battle cry against the encroaching night. She felt the shadows lose their grip for an instant as her resolve surged. "Together," she said, her voice lowering to a whisper but layered with a strength that made her own heart race. "We can break through, Tyler. Just trust me." In a moment of determination, she pivoted slightly and charged forward. "Run!" she shouted, the call igniting a spark of courage in Tyler. They sprinted toward the door, the glow wrapping around them like warm sunlight, stark against the cold embrace of the darkness. As they neared the door, the shadows thrashed around them, howls of rage ripping through the air. "You cannot escape." But Emily's determination swelled. "Yes, we can." She felt the warmth of Tyler's hand within her grasp, a tether holding them together. "Jump!" she bellowed. They leaped, fingers stretching towards the light as Emily felt the attempt to pull Tyler away. In that moment, she pushed forward with everything she had, feeling the darkness claw at her back, threatening to consume them both. The moment the light engulfed them, everything shifted. Silence descended like a blanket. Emily gasped, landing hard on a patch of grass. They lay there, panting, hearts racing like war drums, letting the cool air wash over them. "Mom?" Tyler's voice was fragile yet hopeful. "We did it!" she gasped, relief flooding through her. She scrambled to her feet, looking around. The world outside the shadows glowed softly in dawn's embrace, the village waking with the promise of a new day. It felt surreal. The horrors of the night dissolved into the morning light, leaving nothing but echoes, shrouded by whispers now far behind them. "Mom, did we really escape?" Tyler stammered, tears glistening in his eyes. "Yes. We're okay." She enveloped him in her arms, feeling his small body shake with the remnants of fear. "Is it really over?" She searched those frightened eyes, wishing she could banish all the nightmares lurking like specters in their minds. "It is for now, but we have to be strong. We can't let fear take hold again." As they stood together, dawn breaking against the horizon, she swept her gaze across their quiet street. The world was still, yet shadows lingered at the edges, gnawing at her heart. "I promise I'll keep you safe," she whispered, vowing to herself as much as to Tyler. But deep down, Emily knew this was truly over. The whispers had merely retreated, waiting for another chance to slip back into their lives. "It's time to go home," she murmured gently, taking his hand as they walked toward the warmth of their house. The door creaked, creaking open as if it too remembered the night. They stepped across the threshold, leaving the lingering darkness behind. "Mom, can I?" Tyler began hesitantly as they entered. "Not now, Tyler," she reassured softly, holding his hand tightly. As they settled back into their small world, Emily knew one thing with certainty. They faced battles ahead, but whatever shadows came, they would stand strong together. What had been a terrifying night ended with the promise of a new dawn yet to break, a future waiting to be forged. They would face it, hand in hand, like they always should. That day, as they embraced the light of morning, Emily could only hope the shadows had truly been vanquished, but she wouldn't let her guard down. Not for a second. She was ready to fight if they ever returned. Now it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Join us on this wild journey.